Assalamu alaikum viewers, please like, share and subscribe this channel. Links of PDF files used in this video are given in description. So today's lecture is about DTA or Differential Thermal Analysis, and this is the next lecture about thermal methods of analysis or thermoanalytical techniques. So we have given the title of today's lecture about mapping the invisible by the help of differential thermal analysis, or we can say that we are translating the phase changes into thermal topography. So as we are seeing that just like other thermal methods of analysis, we also got thermal peaks or thermograms. And if you are seeing here that there are two types of peaks, and this is the red peak and this is the blue peak. This red peak indicates exothermic change, and this blue peak, which is inverse in direction, this shows endothermic change. So what is happening? Let's start our lecture and we will deeply dug into this method, differential thermal analysis, and in short term it is also called as DTA. So in this particular lecture, our main focus will be on fundamental mechanism, then variable factors or controls, and thermogram interpretation. So before DTA, we have already studied the technique of TGA, which is called as thermogravimetric analysis. However, there are many limitations of thermogravimetric analysis, and it remains blind for many other changes that are not involved with any weight change. For example, there are a number of physical and chemical changes such as melting point, boiling point, crystallization, oxidation, reduction, and dissociation. All these changes are those changes which are occurring without change in sample's weight. So TGA analysis is not sufficient in order to predict these changes. So that is why we are saying that TGA is not useful, and TGA is only useful for those thermal analytical techniques in which there is either weight loss or gain. So that is why now we have shifted to another technique, which is DTA, and DTA will help us to identify the following changes: either it is in the form of melting point, boiling point, crystallization, oxidation, reduction, dissociation, etc. So if we compare TGA and DTA, so if we see that TGA measures the mass or weight change with the increasing temperature, whereas the DTA measures the differential temperature or change in temperature, and change in temperature between two things: one is sample and other is reference material. I will explain it further in the lecture. So what is the core mechanism of TGA? That it measures sample mass against time or temperature, whereas DTA measures heat absorption or release against a constant reference. So what is TGA doing? That it help us in order to have information about evaporation, decomposition and sublimation, and all these changes involve weight change. Whereas differential thermal analysis is used for melting point, boiling point, crystallization, oxidation, reduction and dissociation. All these changes are occurring without weight change, and so TGA is not able to identify these changes. So that is why we are taking the help of DTA to find these changes. So we can simply say that DTA does not rely on mass, rather it involves and help us to measure some invisible energetic changes that are occurring in a material, and that material is then identified on the basis of its particular DTA pattern or fingerprint. And how this fingerprint is obtained? Simply by tracking the rate of change of its temperature. Well, so this example will help us, and it will solve many of our queries. And the title of this slide is the isothermal plateau. And if we are seeing here that there is a rising graph, and what this graph showing is that, for example, we are melting an ice. So what is happening, there is some pan. On that pan, for example, there is a beaker or pan, and on that pan we contain a piece of ice, and what we are doing, we are heating that piece of ice. So what will happen, that temperature will continue to rise from minus 100 centigrade to 0 centigrade. So here in the y-axis there is rise in temperature from minus 100 centigrade and onwards toward 100 centigrade. As the temperature is increases, the heat contents of the pan or the container in which this ice cube is present are also increasing. So here we are linearly increasing, the temperature is increases, and here we are giving the heating input. So what is happening, that as the temperature is given by the furnace, so the temperature of the system or the temperature of the container is rising. However, when the temperature reaches to 0 centigrade, so at 0 centigrade the ice begins to melt. And now what we are doing, we are continuously increasing the temperature and we are continuously putting the heat by furnace. However, the temperature of the system is not increasing. It should increase linearly, but it is not increasing. Why it is not increasing and it remains constant? And that is why this plateau or the horizontal surface has come, because all the extra heat is now absorbed by this ice cube, and it is going to change its phase from this solid material to a liquid form. So that is why this added heat is utilized entirely to drive this phase change from solid to liquid. Once the whole container in which the ice has been now converted into a liquid, now the temperature of this container will again start to rise, and we are seeing here that again there is a rise. Now this rise is until now we reach the temperature of 100 centigrade, and after reaching this point again we are supplying the heat from the furnace, but the temperature of this container is now not further increasing and it remains again constant. Why? At 100 centigrade now the water is starts to convert into steam or vapors, and the temperature will remain constant until the whole water solution has been converted into vapors and steam. Once the water boils, and then the further temperature increases. So we are seeing that here there is a phase change and here there is a phase change, and when there is a phase change then there is no linear increase in the heat contents. So it means heat was absorbed in order to bring these changes, and when we measure this heat and we have the information about at what temperature the heat was absorbed, then we can have a lot of information about our analyte. So in this change, if we see that this container originally it was containing ice cube, then this container was containing liquid, and then this container was containing a steam. However, in all these container types and at different stages there was no change in weight. However, there was change in temperature. So that is why we are using the technique of DTA to bring out these changes on the front in the form of a graph. So next, this diagram explains the structure of the instrument in which the DTA analysis is carried out. So it contains two pans, one is for sample and other is for reference material, and the temperature of these containers is linearly increased by this furnace. So both are placed in the furnace, and these are the thermocouples. They are then attached to the chart recorder in order to measure the difference between the sample container and the reference container. These containers are also called as crucibles, and these are made up of inert materials such as alumina, quartz, platinum, nickel, etc. So, what is the purpose of simultaneous measurement of these two containers like sample and reference through thermocouples is to measure the temperature change between the two holders. So the working mechanism of this instrument is explained in this diagram. So here is the sample container, here is the reference container, and the furnace is continuously supplying heat to both the sample container and the reference container. So this is the heating block, and these two thermocouples are dipped in the sample container and the reference. These are made up of platinum and rhodium rods, and these are also inert materials, and these are fed to XY chart recorder, and both these are simultaneously sending their signals, and these signals are opposite in nature. For example, both these will cancel the signal of one another as long as the temperature of sample and reference is the same. So we will never got a signal and a straight line will be obtained rather than to obtain a curve. So how we measure the phase changes? So let's see, this is the case where there is an endothermic change. For example, we are continuously increasing the temperature of both sample and reference. However, at a particular temperature, there is some phenomena in which the heat is absorbed. So there will be an endothermic change. So as a result of which the temperature of the sample will lower as compared to the reference, and as the pan moves, so the dip is created. On the other hand, if there is some exothermic change such as during oxidation or crystallization, so the temperature of the sample will rise as compared to the reference, so pan will move upward, so the peak in the form of upward direction will be created. So in this way we measure the endothermic and exothermic changes. So for example, this is a thermogram which is obtained by DTA. So if we are seeing here A, B and C curves are obtained. All these curves are in downward direction, they indicates endothermic changes, whereas this D is in upward side, so it means there is exothermic change. Now this is a characteristic thermogram of anything. So the size, the shape and the position of this peak will give a unique thermal fingerprint for any material which is analyzed. So a very important thing in DTA is the reference material. Remember that in TGA we have not used any reference material. However, in DTA we will use a reference material, and ideal reference material should have following properties. It should be thermally stable, and it should be absolutely inert, and it should be physically similar to that of your sample. Thermal stability means that it should operate at a wide temperature ranges, and it should be chemically inert, and it should not react with thermocouple or with furnace gases or with sample itself. Similarly, it should be matching in size, particle size, quantity, heat capacity, thermal conductivity with the sample. So ideally, we cannot prepare 100% reference material with that of our sample. However, we try to match as far as possible. We can match this. So in this way, the only change between the sample and reference will be of that physical change, that is either exothermic in nature or endothermic in nature. So normally for inorganic samples, we have a reference of either alumina, which is Al2O3, or carborundum or silicon carbide. For organic compounds, normally we have some stable polymers such as octyl phthalate and silicon oil. Apart from these reference materials, the material of and the shape of the two crucibles should be identical. If there is a slight difference, then there will be a change in the reading. So that is why we are making sure that 100% the sample beam and reference beam should be identical to one another. As in the previous slide, we have made sure that both the sample material and reference material should be similar to each other, but it is not possible. So we use the technique of dilution. So what we do, that we take an active sample and we mix it with the powdered reference material. So we do this mixing. In this way we try to make our analyte with matching properties with that of our reference material. So in this way we can compensate this effect. However, we can do dilution with the reference powder or material only when we are sure that the reference and sample do not react chemically with each other. The DTA curve we obtain is very much sensitive and it is not robust, and there are various factors and variables which can affect their change. So we mainly categorize these factors into two types, like instrumental factors and sample factors. The instrumental factors are related to the mechanical and the electronics of the instrument, such as the furnace, sample holder, temperature measuring device, recording apparatus, etc. Whereas sample factors include mainly the thermal properties of the materials which are placed in the crucible. So this technique is very sensitive, and even a slight change will cause a difference in the peaks. So this is not ideal. So this is the disadvantage of this technique, that we have to create identical situations in both sample and reference, and only there should be a change, and that change should be corresponding to the physical change or chemical change that is happening in the sample. Other than that, both the sample container and the reference container should be identical in as far as their environment is concerned. If we further dug up that what are these instrumental factors that causes changes, so first of all is the furnace dynamics, its atmosphere composition, size, shape, etc. Then again the sample holder geometry, what is it is made up of material, its shape, thermal conductivity, reactivity limits. And then the placement of this thermocouple, either it is placed in the center or it is in the side. Similarly the recorder calibration. So all these factors are related to the instrument, whereas the peak shape depends upon sample and reference. And what are those factors, like physical state, like particle size, packing density, thermal properties like heat capacity, and dynamic changes such as degree of crystallinity, structural changes, and of course contaminants such as moisture and other some things which can protrude out from either the sample container or holder or the reference material or the crucibles or from the thermocouples. So this slide provide us a complete sequence, and what are the topics that we have discussed, that we take a sample and reference, and we linearly heat them in the furnace in the controlled environment. After heating, then there are changes, either there will be endothermic reaction or there will be exothermic reaction, and then these changes are then converted into peaks, and we can then identify what were the endothermic changes and what were the exothermic changes. So DTA is not just a measurement tool, it is a translation engine, and it actually do the topography of invisible changes that were occurring and that were associated with the heat absorption or heat emission. So we conclude that this technique is beyond mass, and we don't need changes in mass. We can have a lot of information by DTA, and by mastering the instrumental variables and by controlling the factors related to instrument and related to the sample, we can map or we can have the idea of exact temperatures at which the material changes its nature, or either it is going through the physical change or either it is going through the chemical chain. So this was all about today's lecture. I hope you have well understood this lecture, but if still you have confusion, let me know in the comment section. I will respond to your queries as soon as possible. Okay, thank you. Allah Hafiz.